Okay, welcome to Biomath. So in this lesson, we're going to work on solving linear inequalities with the variable on both sides. In the previous lesson, we did this with the variable on one side, so now I'm going to work on it with the variable on both sides. So let's start going through number one. Remember that the idea is to get the x by itself to one side, like we would do with normal equations, but we have to make sure we take care of the inequality here because that's going to change how the answer looks. And in the last lesson, we wrote it in inequality form, I did a number line, and then I did interval notation, and I will do the same thing here. So looking at this problem, you want to get the x's to one side. Most students like to move the variable to the left side. Again, it doesn't make a difference, but a lot of students are comfortable with it on this side. Also with inequalities, if the x is on this side, you have to be careful how you read the answer when you're doing the number line and writing an interval notation. So I'll just go ahead and move this 3x over to the other side. So again, if it's a plus 3x, we have to minus 3x. So when we do that, we get 2x minus 7 is greater than 9. Again, make sure you line everything up, keep it all neat and organized. So now at this point, we want to get rid of the minus 7. So in order to get rid of minus 7, we do the inverse. We're going to add 7. So that give us 2x is greater than 16. 2x is greater than 16. So now, of course, we're just going to divide, because this is 2 times x. We're just going to go ahead and divide that, inverse, and we get x is greater than 8. So this is our inequality notation, our answer. So we want to go ahead and put it on a number line, and then we want to do interval notation. Well, if you remember on the number line, because this is just a greater than, it doesn't have the equal sign with it, it's going to be open circle. So I'll just put a 0 here, put an 8 here, and it's going to be open circle on the 8. And then, if you remember from last lesson, since the x is on the left side, you can just go ahead and follow this sign, this inequality, and it's pointing to the right. And of course, it's greater than, so it is going that way. But remember, that only works if the variable is on the left side. So x is greater than 8, that means we're going to the right. Then for interval notation, remember, you're basically just taking the number line and then you can transfer it into the interval notation. So with interval notation, it starts all the way on the left. I forgot to put my little negative, infinity, and infinity there. So you're starting all the way on the left till you first get to your number here with your solution, which is 8, and it's going to be parentheses, because remember, parentheses means you're not including the value, a bracket means you're including the value, and it's going all the way to the right, so it's going all the way to infinity, and of course we put parentheses around the infinities. So you have your inequality, you got your number line, and then of course you have your interval notation. So looking at number 2, students see that fraction again, and they always just get frustrated when they see a fraction. But we can go ahead and get rid of it if you don't want to work with it. It doesn't really make a difference. I could just move this over here. I can move this over here and work with the fractions. But if you want to get rid of the fractions, remember in a previous lesson, I said if you just multiply everything by this denominator, this will reduce to a regular integer value, and you'll get rid of the actual fraction. So if I go ahead and just take this whole thing and multiply it by 2, you got to multiply everything. So I'm going to distribute this 2 to everything inside this inequality. So that would give me 4 minus, if I multiply 2 times 3 over 2, that's just going to be 3x greater than, and it's going to be 2x, and then it's going to be minus 6. So again, 2 times 2 is 4. This times this, so 2 times 3 over 2 is 6 over 2, which is 3. And of course, we have the x there. And then 2 times x is 2x, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So now we got rid of the fraction. Some students like that better, so we'll just go with that. So now I'm going to move the x's. Well, if I move this over to here, that makes the x positive over here, which is fine. If I move it over here, my x is going to be negative, which is fine as well. But excuse me. Remember that when you are dividing by a negative, you have to flip the inequality. So it all depends on what you want to do. I'll just go ahead and move it over to the left side because most students are comfortable with that. So if I subtract the 2x, that gives me 4 minus 5x is greater than or equal to -6. Be careful, make sure you bring that sign down. So now I'm going to get rid of the 4. It's a plus 4, so I got to subtract. So that gives me -5x is greater than or equal to -10. So this is what I was saying, where you got to be careful, because I know we're going to divide to get the x by itself, but we're dividing by a -5. So if we do that, this symbol is going to flip. So this becomes x is now less than or equal to +2. So again, we divide by a negative, it flips. So x is less than or equal to -2. So that is our inequality notation. We're going to put this on a number line at 0 and 2. Remember, with the inequality symbol, it's less than or equal to, it's going to be a closed circle. And then less than, we're going to the left. Less than, we're going to the left. So that is our number line. And I'll put this -infinity and infinity so we can do the interval notation. So remember that from the last lesson, doing interval notation with a less than is a little tricky, because you have to start all the way from the left. It's got to follow a number line. It's got to go from least to greatest. So you start all the way from the left, and then we're going all the way up to this number. So you can't write it as 2, -infinity. That's just not true. You got to start with the lowest number. So this is going to go, I'll just put it up here. We're going to go from -infinity, going all the way up to 2. And of course, we're including that 2, so it's going to be a bracket. So there is our interval notation. Let's look at number 3. So we got a lot more going on there. You got to really be careful, especially over here. When students see that, the 6 minus 4, they automatically want to put 2. They just want to go ahead and do 6 minus 4 and put a 2 here. That is not true. We cannot do that. We have to move this 6 over first, then we can distribute the -4, or you could distribute the -4 first, then combine any like terms and move things over. It's your choice. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do, excuse me again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute this -4. So 6 minus 4 minus 24x is less than or equal to -x minus 21. So again, I went ahead and distributed. So -4, and this gives me -24, and then just copied everything else down. Now at this point, you can go ahead and combine these terms. And the students will say, well, why couldn't I just put the 2 up here and then distribute it? Well, if you did that, you wouldn't get the same answer that you have right over here. So this becomes 2 minus 24x less than or equal to -x minus 21. Now we got to commit to moving the x's to one side. So if I go ahead and move this over here, it'll be positive, but again, it's on the right side, which I'll just go ahead and do it anyway. I'll just change it up a little bit. So I'm going to add 24x here. So what does that give me? It gives me 2 less than or equal to 23x minus 21. So now I'm going to move the minus 21, so I'm going to add 21 over to the other side. So that gives me 23 is less than or equal to 23x. That worked out nicely, especially when we're going to divide this now. So we're going to divide both sides by 23. And then that gives us x is greater than or equal to 1. Notice how I said that. X is greater than or equal to 1. The variable is on the right side. You read it from the variable to the number. So when we're doing a number line, you have 0, that's 1. You can't make your arrow go to the left trying to follow this because it's x is greater than or equal to 1. So greater than or equal to, we put a closed circle here. And then, of course, we're going to the right because it's greater than or equal to 1. So there is the number line. And then for interval notation, again, we got to start with the smallest number, which is a 1, and we're including it. So I'll just put it over here. So it's going to be a bracket, 1, comma, and I forgot to put my infinities here. That's just for interval notation. And then we're going all the way to the right, which is positive infinity, which of course is a parenthesis. And there is your interval notation. Okay, So hopefully you enjoyed this lesson, and there'll be other lessons to come on my YouTube channel at Mbala Math. And like my first period used to say, make smart choices. See you next time.